Kizzy's also talking about the changes. I can give you like a summary of what Kizzy is going to say. He's going to say, they listening. They made all the changes we want. The game looks godlike. Arxis is godlike. They heard you out. He's about to drop the pre-beta tier list. Here it comes. All right, so there's a bunch of announcements. There's a ton. We should start probably with Giovanna trailer. I love her theme. This shit is a Red Hot Chili Pepper song. I wanted to see the super for real. One big important thing is obviously below where my portrait is down here, there's 2 slots left, right? So Giovanna's been added. There's 2 additional slots. And then we see, here comes a Daredevil. The fan drop. The T is from like a year ago. Anji, which means we have 1 slot, right? We'll talk about that in a second. Now let's watch this trailer and talk about this a little bit. First of all, the dog is incredibly cool. There's a lot of details about this dog that I like a lot, and I think this character in motion is super tight. Not as cool as some characters that do lots of kicks, but the dog helps a lot. Visually, the character looks dope. I think a lot of people really like her design. She's a new character. We're all hyped about this. She's like the bodyguard for the Brazilian president or something, or somebody, some president. So in the splash art for her, and when the dog is just around her, it's like incorporeal kind of. It has no legs. It's just like a spirit. So she's just blocking, and then obviously she jumps over this because Potemkin players are assholes. Then notice when the dog does certain attacks with her, not only does she animate, but the dog, when it hits the deck and starts doing attacks, has legs, which is really cool. She has like some double hitting kick move, right, that she does in the air. It's like 2 hits, bang, bang, and that you can air dash cancel and extend. That's cool. You can pet the dog. Important part about this game. She does Bitatsu. Just cool. That air dash, this cross up air dash move looks like it's going to be very good. I don't know if you can do it without a jump normal, but yeah, she's got spiral arrow. She's got like some kind of handstand. I don't know if this is like an invincible move or just a normal that anti-aired in this case. Like it's like her 2H or something. The dog is growling at the end. He's like, what's up? He's talking shit. She's really aggressive. Apparently they described her. She's like a rushdown character. She doesn't really look that much like a Guilty Gear character to me. She kind of reminds a lot of people of a KOF character, obviously. Not only in the way she animates, but in the way she looks. She is a really surprising addition to me. So this is Anji right here. So that means there's 1 slot left in the entire base roster. There'll be 15 characters in the initial roster. Think about how many characters are not added to the game right now, and there's 1 slot left. Johnny, Baiken, there's Ino, Venom, Slayer, Jam. There's a lot of like really classic characters that are not in there. I have a feeling the last character is going to be either another throwback character or a boss. It's really weird to not see any of those characters in the game. It's Terry. I'll play Terry. Could you imagine how pissed everybody would be if I played Terry in this game? Banaku. It's a pretty wild one to think about how many characters are missing that are like standard. You expect them to be in Guilty Gear characters. The second thing that we want to watch, and I won't probably spend as long on this because I don't give a shit, is the story trailer. There's a few details about There's a few details about this that are kind of important. Yeah, we know it's bullshit blazing. The characters look great. We get it. According to you, yes. That part, the tag battle system, when I saw this, I was terrified. I was like, please God, no. But then I think this is like a tag mode that you can play. You know what I mean? Anyway, nobody cares about that. Some stuff to talk about. You know, it's a Japanese presentation, which is, it took 3 hours to get 40 minutes of information out there. This is the new UI. This is the new battle UI that they have in the game. So there's a few things that have changed that are important. Obviously, I'm blocking the right side here, but you can just look at the left side. It's a mirror. It's better, but still not great. So the portrait for the character is now disconnected from the meters, right? Portrait of the character is now static, which is very important. And you can see that there is an actual burst gauge. Question, chat. Do you guys see the risk gauge? The risk gauge is under the burst gauge. It is this tiny small little gauge right there. That's the wrist gauge. Thankfully, it's in one spot, so it doesn't move around, but it's still a very tiny gauge compared to everything else. They've said repeatedly, like, hey, we don't want people who are new to be worried about the wrist gauge or something, right? They're like, we don't want it to be a big deal. And then they've said repeatedly, this game, risk is a big deal. That being said, the UI is very similar to what we saw before. They're just static elements on it now, right? So it's got the same tension meter, basically. It's got the same hearts instead of round count. It's got the burst indicators the same. Color of the light bar is the same. And overall, like, it's the same UI, but just placed in a spot instead of moving. So I think everybody who disliked the UI before probably still dislikes it. And anybody who liked the UI before, it's the same, basically, right? They've moved some stuff around, but I don't like it still. I don't know what happened here. Guilty Gear as a game, right? When you think about the aesthetic of the game and think about the aesthetic of the characters, it's an incredibly extra, over the top, like, it's a Japanese person's perspective of, like, Western rock. Everybody's real extra. They've got 19 belts, you know, just, like, on them and shit. And it's, like, they've got these giant skull caps, like May's got here, and a big anchor. And then somebody was like, you know what the aesthetic for Guilty Gear is? Minimalism. It really doesn't want to show itself off. It's very small and contained. I don't know how those wires got crossed. Both this UI and the UI in the battle screen are better than the old UI. But still, it's just like, why, you know? I don't understand it. There's like 97 fonts on this screen. It's still ugly compared to the Xrd character select screen or other character select screens, but it's weird. I'm not a professional when it comes to graphic design. That's true. Do you guys remember my old layout? That being said, it looks bad. I don't need fancy eyes for that. Okay, next bit of the thing that I wanted to talk about is when I was watching the gameplay, this is on High Fight's Twitter, he clipped this. I was watching the gameplay where Dogger was getting eviscerated. And, you know, while watching this, I thought to myself that the numbers were smaller on the combo counter. I thought the numbers looked smaller when we watched the very first match because it was like two people who had never played Guilty Gear play. And then I actually watched this match, and I was like, oh, they're the exact same. The positive, the ginormous positive, I'm really happy it's a different font. I love different fonts. Super, look at this super, it looks hella tight. Brrrah! And then at the very end, 32. So yeah, it hasn't changed. One thing that I do like, and it's hard to tell because a lot of the people were playing new characters and not the characters we saw in the beta, it seems like there is much less counter hit zoom. It seems way more infrequent. It's like only certain kinds of hits. It's like the big counters, right? I think the actual counter hit not being as distracting is great. I'm a big fan of that not happening all the time. The rest of the gameplay, it looks very similar to the version we all played. It looks extremely similar. Also, RAM looks cool. I think one thing I can't flame this game for, and I don't think anybody can, is how visually great the game is. I made a tweet that was like, this game looks incredibly good. And people were like, yeah, duh. The reason I made that tweet was because instead of just fucking showing us all the stuff they wanted to show us, they went through every single character in the game that they've revealed so far, one by one, and they spent like 15 seconds on each character, and I was just like, this is so stupid. But then while they were doing it, I was like, this game looks pretty good. Anyway, last thing, this is a tweet from HD Kieran. PlayStation 4 version of the game, right? There's 900 versions. The important things to look at here, right? Standard, the digital version, deluxe, and ultimate get 1 day of early access to open beta. They've announced there's going to be an open beta. The open beta is going to be early next year sometime. They didn't say when, right? Then the second thing is that there's a season pass, which the deluxe edition and the ultimate edition gets the season pass, right? And these are $84.99 and $99.99. Release date, right? So if you buy the deluxe edition or the ultimate edition, you get the game 3 days early. So you get to play April 6th instead of the April 9th release date. So look at this shit. There's a day one DLC that you can buy. That's the season pass. And it gives you 1 day early access to the beta test. And it gives you access to the game 3 days early. It's offline only, though. I know. I'm aware. But it's still 3 days early for this. That is wild. That is such a weird release model for a game to do, you know? It's so bizarre. 3 days early to play the story mode and the offline mode and whatever. And then it's the same deal for PlayStation 5. You get it 3 days early if you buy the ultimate or the ultimate other one. The important slide here, the PlayStation announcement, PC Steam. Release date for the standard edition and the deluxe edition is April 9th on both. The retail price, you know, it's the same as the other versions. Notice that there's no beta on here either. The other thing that they announced, which is cool, is that the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 versions of the game will have crossplay. Not crossplay with PC? I don't believe so, no. I seem to recall a game released in 2013 having console to PC crossplay. It's a long time ago. Nobody cares now, right? It's not that surprising to me, but it's still very disappointing. I made a tweet that was like, why is it that PC fans or PC fighting game fans get smoked all the time? And so many people replied to it with the dumbest things I've ever read. It reminds me, I'm still getting tweets about skill-based or comments on my YouTube video about skill-based matchmaking. And I gotta say, these anti-PC fans, they're the same thing in my mind. I read their comments and I'm like, boy, somewhere out there, a YouTuber who doesn't give a shit about you is trying to convince you that the game would be better if it was worse for you. Now, I'm the opposite. I know that it's unfortunate, but I'm going to say something and be like, this is how the game will be better for all of us, because it shouldn't be better for the company. It should be better for the players, the consumers. And everybody's like, oh, how could you? It's Giovanna. Giovanna, you know, Giovanna's a lot of things, but considerate of consumers is not one of them. Anybody who moves to Japan and lives there, despite everybody, you know, hating them because they're not Japanese, has to be a weeb. And you can't trust their opinion on Japanese things, all right? Compromised agent. He's no longer an agent that we can trust. They got into him, and they turned him into the Winter Soldier. All PC players are pirates. That's what he said on his stream. And then guess what? Later on, I get a bunch of comments that says, it's because all PC players are pirates. And I look, following, and I look on there and I see Gina holding his mic in his profile picture. I'm like, oh, of course, okay. I see where these people have been trained. It's like all the arguments are so bad. I understand the PC version not getting a beta. I think that's stupid, but I understand why. But everything else about it is hella dumb. So anyway, let's do a summary here. New character, final release date, final roster size. We know that there's only one character left. We'll probably get that character in February or March. We know that Anji is the last character that we're going to see before this unreleased character, and that's going to be January 1st. We know that Giovanna is in the game. We know some stuff about her. We know that there's going to be a beta early next year. Highly unlikely that beta does not have rollback, correct? Because, I mean, the game has to be rollback at this point, right? They must have converted the game over to a rollback system. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't have rollback for that beta. It would be very bizarre to me, and also almost pointless. The last beta, dude, I played someone who is legit less than 10 minutes by car ride from me. The other day, he was like, I had a sandwich from this place, and I was like, that sounds great. So I also ordered a sandwich from that exact location. It's that close. We played against each other, and the connection was dog shit. Super bad. Anyway, there's going to be a beta early into next year. We don't know exactly when, but we know that if you pre-order the like fancy editions on console, you get to play it early. Because it's early next year, I'll have my PS5 by then, hopefully. And if I do, I will probably pre-order the game on PS5 to try playing it on PS5 and see what it's like. My thing is, I want to play the game on PC. I don't want to play it on PlayStation. And PC will probably have less players because there's no crossplay on it. But if the rollback in the game is good, you should still be able to play whoever you want to play as long as they have the PC version. The shitty thing, though, is that the game is incredibly expensive if you want the characters, right? It's like $90 out of the gate or $85 out of the gate, which is basically $90 with tax, to get the characters in the game. Yes, the game is out earlier on PS5. If you pre-order the Ultimate or Deluxe Edition, you get the game 3 days early with only offline play and story mode. It's better than having to wait months. Sure, getting hit by lightning is better than getting hit by like a semi-truck probably. I don't know which of those is better, actually. Some things are better than others, even if they're still not great. I agree. Can't wait to spend $400 for DLC in both versions. Yeah, it's Granblue all over again. It's fucked up how expensive these games are. Granblue is like that right now. It's very tough to incentivize people to buy it given the price, right? Granblue is very expensive, even compared to like most modern games that come out. Like think about like a lot of the popular games now, how much money they cost, if they cost anything, and what they're delivering to you by comparison. What are the most popular games right now? Among Us? More realistically, Valorant, Genshin Impact, Fall Guys is like 15 bucks, 20 bucks or whatever. Riot's card game is free. You can play Warzone for free, right? Apex Legends is free. Hades is, well, Hades is not multiplayer, but it's like 15 bucks. I don't know why people keep saying that fighting games are like the same price. It's the same price if you buy like a AAA game with DLC, like God of War or something. Sure, Guilty Gear is very expensive. It's a big investment, but fighting game fans will buy it. And that's the thing is, like, we're going to buy, at least a lot of fighting game fans are going to buy the game anyway. And that's always been the case. It's just the value of what we get compared to other games is not great usually. How will a fighting game monetize if it's free to play? The same way every other free to play game monetizes. I play Runeterra, and I always bring this up because it's just a good example of a free to play game. The only things I've spent money on is emotes, which are like stickers, right? Stickers that you can post in game, boards, and like they're gonna have like skins for stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I've spent money on in the game. I've not spent any money on cards. I've just been buying that kind of stuff, and I've spent probably 20 bucks or something in half a year that I've been playing the game or whatever. Yeah, I've done a few different talks about ways fighting games could monetize free to play stuff. There's like a million things. When you think of, people think about fighting game monetization and they only think about costumes, but it doesn't have to just be those. It can be win poses and taunts. It can be new effects for characters, right? So like the way all of their animations for all their like fireballs and stuff change color, and their different effects and stuff. Skins do that. It can be intros and outros and win screens and music, or it's like stage music or UI changes or announcer packs. Yeah, there's plenty of, like Leffen says, there's plenty of other games that have done all this, and it's fine. You say, yeah, but you wouldn't want to pay for any of that. You don't have to. Somebody will. You don't have to. Fighting game fans spend a lot of money to play fighting games. We've always talked about this. Think about how much money fighting game fans spend to play fighting games. They buy a $60 game. They buy a $25 to $30 season pass. They buy a $150 to $200 fight stick a lot of times. Not everybody does, but they do. Or a hitbox. Gas money and money to go out and eat and to go to their locals all the time. Spend $1,000 a couple of times, maybe 2-3 times a year to go to a tournament, right? So you fly out to Evo or you fly out to Vegas for Evo, or you fly out to, the middle of fucking nowhere for Combo Breaker. There are people who don't, but there are lots of fighting game fans who are willing to invest in their experience. Anyway, my closing thoughts on Guilty Gear kind of is that the new game, there's some interesting things that they've done. There's plenty of things that I'm still hesitant on. The second beta, I think, is going to tell a lot about where we're at, right? Because assumedly second beta has rollback in it. If it doesn't, it's going to be a disaster. And also whatever their lobby changes are going to be, right? People ask them like, hey, what's the plan for the lobby changes, all this kind of stuff, and they're like, look, just trust us, wait and see. Like, you'll be able to try it. It's kind of what they kept saying before they announced the beta. I mean, if you watched the last beta, I feel like nobody who didn't try the last beta enjoyed watching it. It was just such a shit show. I just want to play the game on PC. Fighting game fans, it's so fucked up trying to explain like, hey, what they're doing is very abnormal and they're charging you a lot of money for stuff. Fighting games fans are like, no, they're not. Like, why? Why do you not just look around? I don't understand. You don't have to do anything, but you should just know that there's plenty of other games out there that are free to play or way cheaper than fighting games that offer much more value for their package. And fighting game fans are like, nuh-uh. It's very hard to just be like, okay, you don't like those games though? I want to like snap my keyboard in half. That's not the point. You don't have to like any of those games. You don't even have to like the fighting games that are doing good stuff. The point is, you should be able to look laterally at other games and recognize that fighting games are giving you a bad deal compared to what other genres get for their money. That's what matters. If you're a fighting game fan and you play Grand Blue Versus and you have shit online and it's very hard to play people, and you look over at Mortal Kombat and you think Mortal Kombat's the ugliest video game of all time and the animations are ugly and everybody's down 3 looks like dog shit, but they can play anybody they want because the netcode's fantastic and NRS cares about them, you don't have to like Mortal Kombat, but you can be like, shit, they've got it good over there. The same person who replied to my video about Dark Souls fans and said, I hope you never play Nier. The game is perfect in every way, and I don't want you to sully it by trying the game. Like, I just want to play Nier just to piss that guy off. I'll just do one playthrough, talk shit the whole time, say 2B has a flat ass and the game is not good, say she's got the Hank Hill ass, and just leave. Anyway, the game is like critically acclaimed. Who gives a shit what I say? A lot of people like it. I've never even played it. I just know that if I played it and I said anything bad about it, people would be upset.